so happy to get together again to talk about pressing issues of our time. And the question we always ask is, if not now, when? When is the right time? And today's conversation is so mission critical for the work we are doing across Asia, Latin America, and Africa, because our shared prosperity starts with our unity. We are stronger together. And so our conversation is themed around the unbreakable power of our unity to help us thrive. And that's the power we want to focus on, because when we come together, nobody can separate us and therefore play one of us against the other. And our strength is truly rooted in that unity. And the best example I can give is a story I was told growing up as a child. This father had 4 sons, and as part of the learning through storytelling, he told the 4 sons to go and pick pieces of wood and twigs from the garden and bring them. Then he had told all the 4 sons, take one of those and break, and it quickly broke. He said, now take 2 of those and break. It broke, but was not that easy. Then he made them break 3 of them together. By the time it got to 4 and 5 pieces of twigs together, none of the boys could break it. And so he sat down the sons and said, you know what? You're 4 of you. If 4 of you work together, you are an unbreakable, unstoppable force. And your strength comes from that unity, and thrive with that unity no matter what differences you have. Figure it out, because that is not half as important as you working together. And this story stuck with me. And it's not just the family, right? We are a human race. We are a human family. And too often our colonial masters have divided us and pitted us against one another. And we've brought that ancestral memory years later into our everyday lives. So how are we going to break that cycle? And how are we going to take the breaking of that cycle to truly take us to a place where we are building our shared prosperity? And it's okay to be different and yet in harmony. To have this amazing conversation and start putting a going forward call to action and action plan is my dear friend Kunle from Nigeria. Kunle, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Dr. Cass. It's always a pleasure. And I know this conversation is absolutely going to really create an impact in our immediate environment and beyond, because from the introduction that you gave, this is absolutely something that will create something monumental beyond now.
I'm so glad. And this topic came as a conversation from last time, right? So every week we are building up, and we are not just talking, we are then behind the scenes working and collaborating to bring this to real life. So when you sit in the African continent and look at what's going on around you, Kunle, and you've traveled and lived and worked in the UK and you've seen other places, what's coming to you, and how do you think we can start building this movement for unity? Because it comes from the inside of each of us.
Absolutely, rightly said. In African community, I have seen it over a period of time growing up with my parents, how we value, living together. But somehow we've grown over a period whereby we have like a kind of people who are leading, who want to profit in one way or the other, how they can disunite people, because they know, just like from that introduction, our power, our strength lies in our unity. And so they use ethnicity, they use religion, they use, so many forms of creating a form of diversity to really push people aside, to push people away, and profiting on that kind of things in order to really take what belongs to them. What I am trying to paint from that picture is the fact that there is power in coming together. There is power in unity. As a matter of fact, there is a philosophy in the southern part of Africa by a people called the Zulu in South Africa. And it is called the Ubuntu philosophy. And it is that philosophy that talks about humanity. But one critical line about that philosophy, that's a tag that's been used by many people, is the fact that it realizes the coexistence of every human being and how we are interdependent. We are not fully dependent, and neither are we totally independent. In other words, I need Dr. Cass, I need Stuart, I need Felicia in order to survive. And that concept of Ubuntu says, I am because we are. So in other words, for me to thrive, the next person to me must thrive. For the next person to thrive, I must thrive as well. And we must come out with that kind of mentality in our hearts, in our minds, to really inform what we do and how we form a collaboration while doing what we do. The reason is because the common denominator between everything we are or we will become, are the people. So it doesn't mean whether we are doing the same thing or similar things, but in as much as it addresses the people, which is the common denominator. So that means that we can form an intersection of purpose. We can form an alliance that will take us beyond our own selfish gain, because I know that I need someone else who can do what I cannot do, because I cannot live alone. I cannot be siloistic. I cannot just live in silo, because the world is not created in such a way. So that is why it's important. And that's how I have lived my life over a long period of time. I have had the opportunity of doing massive things beyond my own capacity, just by the virtue of leveraging on the power of the people. There is no limit to what an individual can achieve. There is no limit to what a community can achieve. There is no limit to what a nation can achieve if we can leverage on the power of unity and coming together. Dr. Cass.
Brilliantly said, Kunle. And as you are talking, what comes to my mind is the story of Midas, right? Everything he touches turns gold. But he couldn't wear clothes. He couldn't sit on anything comfortable. He couldn't eat. He couldn't drink, right? So money is only a tool or a medium of exchange to acquire what we need. Even from an economic, financial perspective, money is not demanded for its sake. It's a derived demand. So its derivative is its value of exchange. Nothing is stopping us as individuals to bypass that monetary medium of exchange and come up with other mediums of exchange. Service for service swaps. You're writing a book, I'll contribute to your book. I'm writing a book, you contribute to my book. That's even. I make healthy food and feed my neighbors. My neighbors don't have money to pay me, but one person can give me oranges, the other person can give me lime, and the other person can give me cilantro. And now together, each of them are growing something and we're all eating together, right? And when we grow our own food, we don't need as much money. So if somebody is growing food, somebody is making clothes, somebody is a plumber, somebody is an electrician, this whole community comes together. We can bypass those with money who want to control us. And to me, there is where the magic is. And COVID has taught us, right? COVID has taught us that money doesn't give us anything when the supply chains freeze. Money doesn't give us anything when we don't have that real human connection. There are so many people so depressed. On the surface, they look like they got everything. but behind the scenes, they're heartbroken. They don't have true human connection. So how do we use this unity to create that human connection and one for all and all for one? And as we have a conversation about this, I am going to invite Felicio and Stuart to join in and share your thoughts and your observations from where you sit, where you have traveled, and where do you see the ability to bring this about in the community you are currently serving.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. I'm so excited. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. It's good to be here. Kunle, yes, I can see your thumbs up. Thank you. Mr. Stewart, it's good to see you here. All right, we're talking about unity. Unity is very important. Unity itself is strength. That is why you see so many sets of people here in Africa. They try to divide because they know that once we are united, we can deal, with whatever they are bringing. So they bring a lot of division, just like Kunle had mentioned. They use ethnicity, they use religious bias, they use, tribal sentiments to cause all of this division. And in doing this, they weaken the people who are supposed to be strengthened by what they have as a collaborative effort. So you see, unity, the importance of unity cannot be underestimated. But in working around unity, the people that wants to be united needs one or two things, to ensure that unity is real, or to work around unity. Number one, I believe we need to have clearly defined goals. Mm-hmm. What are we being united on? What is the essence of coming together? Clearly defined goals for each of the projects that we might have, for each of the tasks. Once we have the defined goals, it's easy to achieve them. Beyond just the defined goals, we also need to have defined roles. Who have
Mm-hmm. So far we've been talking about the importance of goals, and along with the goals, who's playing
people that will be taking about these tasks. You have the infantry. They do the most. Then you need the inputs of all of the system, the military system are needed. You need the Air Force, you need the Navy. If there's a water body around where you're going, so everybody comes together, but with a defined role. You can't see the Air Force trying to encroach on what the infantry is doing. What they can only do is they can build on it by their clearly defined roles. So we need defined roles, putting people in their area of strength. Beyond the defined role, I also believe we need to establish trust. We need to believe in ourselves. You need to give people the opportunity to express the giftings that they have, the abilities that they have in that group. While they are doing this, you give them the opportunity to express it, and then you don't micromanage them. You believe so much in them. Kunle will be able to get this done within the set time. And then it's important that once someone is believing in you, you also deliver, so that they won't be over scrutinizing you or asking too much questions. When your deliverables are set, your deliverables are attainable, people will not, and you're achieving them, people will want to trust you even more. Aside this, I also believe we need to encourage open communication. Don't forget that we are trying to arrive at unity. And then in getting to all of these, communication is very important. While you're getting the job done, you have a challenge in between. You should speak up. You don't take it in alone. You talk, because in that diversity that we're talking about, there is strength. Rather, in the unity, there is so much strength. So you leverage, on the expertise of another person. So you open yourself up for communication. Why? Another reason why we need to open ourselves up for communication is because, personally, I believe there are ways of doing things and better ways of doing it. So when I come to you and I explain this is the challenge, before you know it, you're already giving me an input that supersedes what I know. And then I can just galvanize around it. And then aside this, I believe once we start practicing all of these things, we get better and better. So in achieving this unity, all of these things are needed: clearly defined goals, clearly defined roles, establishing trust, encouraging open communication, and ensuring that we do the same practice over and over. Thank you.
Fantastic. So perfectly put, Felicia. And you know, a lot of times people forget the importance of allowing everybody to be seen and heard, because that is how we show people, I see you, I hear you, I respect you, and I care about what all of this means to you, even though I don't always understand it. That is such an important point that you're making in terms of making everybody a part of this. And when we do that, trust automatically comes, right? Trust is earned. And in communication, too many people think it's about us talking, but the power of listening, not just listening with the ears, but listening with the eyes, because 70% of communication is nonverbal. Power of listening with your heart. Bring your whole self into that communication process. Paul Tillich says this beautifully. The first act of love is to listen. And there is no unity unless we actually trust and respect and honor one another. And that starts with the love, not the kind of romantic love. English, I find, is so limited. There's only one word for all kinds of love. But in all the other languages, there are 15, 20, 30 different words for love to mean different kinds of love. So to have the love for humanity, for the love of every soul that our own Creator made to make our life possible, that love starts with listening. And so I love how you brought all of those pieces together, Felicia. Thank you. Go ahead, Kunle.
I mean, that was absolutely fantastic, Felicia. You laid it bare, and they are vital to our unity. What those things that you've just mentioned, and like Dr. Cass just expatiated on communication, it's very, very, very important. In our society today, that's also one of the ways we have so many gaps, because there is a gap in community. The more we talk, the more we know, and then the better we can achieve a lot of things. So I mean, those things that you have mentioned are absolutely valid, and they are also, I mean, in the midst of our diversity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kunle. Go ahead, Stuart. I can see that you have some thoughts going through your mind.
Yeah, I'm liking everything that's been said, and I think one of the biggest problems, especially from a Western point of view, is that we have this mindset of separation. You see it in the medical field, you see it everywhere. We have to break everything down into individual pieces. And we forget that we are all the same. We're all one complete entity, and we're all part of the world. And I think we also forget that each individual has their own strengths, their own best way of doing things. And we need to recognize that and see how we can help them to grow those strengths to achieve this common purpose, rather than say we've all got to do it this way. And this is one of the challenges with the education systems, that they teach you to do things this way, but they're not looking at whether it's suited to your skills and your skill set and your way of doing things. And as you said, you know, that if we say, look, this is what we need to achieve, let's see how we can achieve it. And then people can start giving their input and showing fresh new ways to do things. I think this is a very critical thing that we've lost over the years, and the education systems have conditioned it out of us, and that's a big shame, because there's more than one way of doing something, and you know, we need to go back to that, and we need to communicate. I mean, we're never taught to communicate at school. We assume that we know we can communicate, but we don't know how to communicate. We don't know the words are just labels. We never taught that. We don't see the energy that people put into different words and how that also creates the separation, which is, you know, so common everywhere. So there's a lot of very fundamental things that I think need to happen to get people to come together and work together in the best way for them.
Mhm. Beautifully said, Stuart. And you bring up an excellent point of separation through our education system, right? There is preconditioning throughout the childhood. And you and I have talked about this. There is also a classism that is ingrained in everybody. I mean, I know a lot of times because I look South Asian, everybody assumes I'm a genius. And because I'm Dr. Kasturi, they expect me to be, you know, world class in everything I do. The fact that I do consulting for Warren Buffett, they expect me to know everything. But no, none of them are me. Those are things I do, right? And so, how do we start teaching people to see value in wisdom, in lived experience? And how do we value that and bring it and give it equal place? The story that comes to my mind is this family was they were driving in the United States, going on a vacation, and there was a truck in front of them, and the truck was too tall to pass a bridge. So now there is a traffic jam, and the engineers and everybody is trying to figure out how to get the truck past the bridge without breaking the bridge, and nobody knew what to do. So the little girl got out of the car and told everybody, let a little bit of the air off the tire. And everybody thought she was crazy. But when they did it, they realized the height of the truck reduced. And now they could drive the truck through the tunnel, right through the bridge. And then on the other side, they can add the air that they needed. We underestimate the power of innovation and insight from the unlikely places. How do we make sure everybody has an equal seat at the table? How do we make sure they're seen, they're heard? And don't fall into the trap of classism because no one person is more important than the other.
I think respect is a big word that needs to be included. Respect for each individual as a person rather than, you know, the way we look at people these days. I mean, classism is a big thing, obviously, in the UK because they have the class system, but it's also endemic throughout the world, and it's been used as a separation policy. You know, and you know, when I lived a long time in South Africa, and around the changes from the old apartheid regime, which was very classist, there was also a lot of separation created in the homeland areas between the Zulus and the Xhosas and people like that. That was used as a deliberate ploy to keep people from unifying. So we've got to get outside that, and we've got to look at each individual and respect them for who they are, and not see them as this or that or this level or that level, but see them who they are and know that they've got wisdom that we can learn from, that we can grow from.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Stuart. And you find out that most of these things are just created. And we made them like a form of philosophy. We made them like a form of ideology. And then we now feed them and they grow. And then we start separating one another. I mean, we are representing different parts of the world, and we're on the same call together. I mean, look at what COVID-19 did a couple of years ago, and everyone was pushed inside, but somehow people got to unite virtually. And then you now see it, you see the world from a very different perspective. You see that there is only one thing that unites us, and that's the race we all belong to, which is the human race. You know, how come have we not learned all these things after a while? And how come are we even ditching all these things when it seems COVID is getting, its hand off us right now? How come are we not learning? How come are we not seeing it that it is when we come together, there is even strength. Unity on its own, it is strength. I mean, I don't want to say it has strength. It is strength on its own. I mean, I used to remember way back while we were young, when a car breaks down, I mean, there are manual boys, of maybe 10 way back then. So we don't normally, we're not too physical. But when those cars break down, they will be pushed, and then the driver will have to somehow. But what really surprised me was the fact that people of maybe, very, very not too physical body could come together and push a vehicle of that magnitude, one after the other, coming together. And that will lead to one point that I want to also make in here. In our unity, maybe one thing that we are lacking is to have an organized approach to forming whatever we want to form, and then to bringing it into reality, organizing the approach of doing it. And that's one thing Dr. Kaz and I will be doing together with a whole lot of people, Stuart, Felicia, and everyone, because that is very important. Because if you look at it, people who disunite us, that is also the strategy they use. It's an organized approach. They know what they want to do, and then they now set the ball rolling. They use all those criteria that we have mentioned earlier on, be it religion, be it tribal or ethnic diversity, and they use it. And they know that we want to separate these people. Let's create an ideology for them that they are different. And so when they buy into that ideology, then it scatters them abroad. So the same way, if we want to achieve whatever we want to achieve, we have to put an organized approach to it in bringing and then, uniting ourselves to achieve whatever we want to achieve.
Absolutely, Kunle. And unity is not giving strength. Unity is strength, right? So I love how you distinguish that. And Stuart, I applaud you for making sure we add respect, right? Without respect, there is nothing. And I would go so as far as to say, not just respect for other humans, respect for all living things. When we respect
there's no separation, is there?
Yeah.
There isn't any separation. We are part of the whole system, the ecosystem, however you want to phrase it. We're part of that, and we can't live on our own.
No. So the one health, one world concept talks about how the environmental health and viability is tied to the animal health and viability, which is tied to the human health and viability. When we start separating, this is how we get into trouble. If we respect that one health, one universe concept, then we would not have as many natural disasters. We can avoid situations like COVID. We can avoid situations like the subprime crisis. So let's not blame one part of the world. Everybody is equally responsible, right? The countries that pollute are not the ones who get the ramification of the pollution through natural disasters. The rich countries pollute and the poor countries get all the tsunamis and the flooding, right? So it's just the way the world is set up. Everybody around the equator is poor. Everybody who goes further north is rich. Don't know how that happens, but that's how it has been set up. So the risk is to those who are exposed, but the risk mitigation has to come from somebody else. And so how do we, in our call to unity and building our shared prosperity, how do we truly engage people from developed countries to see and hear and feel what is going on, and then collectively engage? Because the world doesn't differentiate country borders. It doesn't differentiate rich country versus poor country, just like COVID didn't. Actually, poor countries were able to better deal with COVID than rich countries because the poor countries had a way of taking care of each other. Rich countries had to set up supply chains and processes and tech integration and all of that, and it took so much longer. So how can we make this happen? What are the steps we can take now that we know what are the elements we need to make unity together? How do we start implementing this? Let's talk about that, because I want us to move beyond the conversation and understanding to actually creating that lived experience.
I mean, the spot on. That's so spot on. Because we have to see the tangible expression of this particular topic in our community, starting from different homes, then we take it to our mini community, and then that's why I feel, I think Stuart mentioned something as such that, yeah, formal education has really amplified a lot in our world, exposed us to a lot of things, but there are some things that are not taught that should be brought, either, extracurricular activity somehow, or extracurricular teachings in order to help people. And we can go by that, route, whereby, we have a way of, because that's a cluster on its own in getting a set of people. So we can have, specific, schools or specific places or specific environment where people learn, because that's the bottom line. The reason why some people don't practice some of these things, it's because it had eluded them. They don't know about it. They were not taught somehow. And, ignorance has a way of replicating itself. So because you don't know, then you pass it across to your children, and your children passes across to theirs as well. So it will start from us trying to create like a support system that teaches people, that make them imbibe all these values in them, starting from their meaning of their micro environment, which we can build over a period of time. And this will not take eternity for us to build. This will just take a moment. And once it starts, just like I speak of ignorance, knowledge as well has a way of replicating itself. Dr. Kass.
Perfectly put, Kunle. And one of the things you and I have been talking about is taking what I am, through trial and error, putting in place in Belize. How do we take that and replicate across every country, every community in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, right? And it's tangible change happens when we get children involved. Getting the children involved in learning to recycle, getting the children involved in planting. If they plant broccoli, they plant spinach, and they plant bitter gourd or cerasee, as they call it in the Spanish world, they will eat it because they planted it, right? These are all healthy food items. It also prevents high blood pressure, prevents diabetes, prevents cholesterol, and they are getting to live a healthy life. And now through that mechanism, we actually teach them, start documenting how much money you're contributing to the family's bottom line. Every cucumber is 75 cents. So if you have 3 cucumbers a week, you're contributing 75 times 3. So we are teaching them math. We're teaching them the ability to think in terms of overall sustainability and economics. And then if you had 10 cucumbers, what do you do with the extra? Can you pickle it? Can you bottle it? Can you exchange for some tomatoes if you're not growing tomatoes, right? So all of these skills are being taught, and we are getting the schools involved by getting the principals involved. We go and my husband and I go and do it in the community for free. And because we're doing it in the community, the mayor and the system has said, you know what? We will support you, tell us what you need. So the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security gives us all the seedlings. The farmers, the Mayan farmers in the community, they give us the soil. And so we're able to do the planting, the cultivating, the sustainability part in terms of food security. And Belize is one of the 3 countries in the world that grows 60% of what they eat. So we don't want them to lose that and become westernized and start eating canned food, right? That is toxic. And the other thing we are doing, and we just did it last weekend, we asked everybody to save the plastic, and we brought the environmental ministry to help us create Christmas ornaments. So you can make Christmas ornaments for the tree, you can make snowmen. We had every child make a reindeer. My husband is Santa Claus. So every child got to create a reindeer, and they get to pick the eye color and the ear color and everything. So we even had a little girl who wanted one pink eye and one purple eye, right? We celebrated all of their excitement and all the different ways they wanted their reindeer to be. Then we encouraged them to name the reindeer and then take it to Santa Claus and introduce the reindeer and introduce themselves, so that they get to meet Santa Claus, and then Santa Claus can go and tell his reindeers what all these wonderful reindeers he met in San Ignacio, Belize, right? It was such a fun thing. Children were singing, dancing with Santa Claus, with us. It was a beautiful event, and unlikely people came together, and the town gave the amphitheater and the welcome center and said, here, use it. They set up the sound system. They had people volunteer to come and do all of those setup. And then when we were done, we got everybody together and we cleaned up. So without actually putting rules around unity, all of a sudden the community is coming together, and the children are the reason why everybody's coming together. First question every adult asked is how much? It's free. Please come and join. We invited the tourist children and the local children so that they also learn to work together. And so one of the little Canadian girls who joined us said, oh, now I can come next year because all I have to tell is my reindeer, and then my reindeer will talk to Rudolph, and I can be here to see Santa. Isn't that magical? This child is forever going to remember her Christmas and her making Rudolph and how magical Belize was. Children don't see the nuances and differences. They see the moment and the beauty of the moment. So how can we take some of these, and how can I help replicate this in wherever you are? Tell me how I can be of service.
Wow, Dr. Kass, I mean, we need this in, I would say starting from Nigeria. So we've got to replicate legacy Belize and make it, legacy Nigeria, and, in different parts of Africa. And apart from, creating an avenue whereby a particular goal will be achieved, look at the emotional support that it offers people as well. Because I believe while you were saying this, I was even smiling, and I could just imagine how those kids were feeling while doing that. I mean, as a mental health enthusiast and someone who believes in emotional, building emotional capacity, in one way, you've created an environment whereby coming together in one way also has offered an emotional support to those people, because during that period of doing that thing, a lot changes about them. Their feelings, there is more dopamine, there is less cortisol in their body, and there is a feel-good effect it creates that lingers beyond even that moment. Like you said, someone that already anticipated the next Christmas, even right from now. This is what we can do to really create, a lasting legacy in our world, most especially for those young children who are coming behind, and then to put in their hands for them also to teach their kids.
And the beauty of that is not all of us need to be Christian to celebrate Christmas, because Christmas is a feeling. We actually I have a Belizean intern, and she read the editorial response to a child's request on, is there really Santa Claus? So this 8-year-old girl, Virginia, was being teased in school because she believed in Santa Claus. And she went and asked her dad, Papa, is there really Santa Claus? Because everybody's telling me there is not. And the father said, Virginia, if the New York Sun says there is Santa Claus, then there is Santa Claus. So why don't you write to the newspaper? So the little girl wrote a newspaper, and the editor of the New York Sun responded to her, and it is titled, "Yes, Virginia, there is Santa Claus." And we had a young 17-year-old Belizean girl read that to the children and talk to them about why there is Santa Claus and why Santa Claus is going to be there for thousands of years to come. Because Santa Claus, even when you don't see him, it is a feeling. It is a sense of knowing that somebody is out there looking for you, and things are going to work out, and things are going to be magical. In that loving, in that giving, in that sharing, that is the spirit of Santa Claus. And there were children who were surprised to learn that they thought Santa Claus was a person, right? And then if it's a person, he couldn't be living all these years. And so it's like, oh, he's already dead kind of thing, right? So how do we create these conversations? How do we bring these in? And even when children are Spanish speaking, getting the local teenagers involved in telling the stories, because the young ones will listen to the teenagers before they listen to us, right? As older people. So now we can start transforming two generations. So what's coming up for you as you're hearing this, Stuart? I know you have two daughters and you are trying to raise them in a very controlled environment to be open and limitless.
Mhm. I mean, Santa Claus is really just a metaphor for something which is within us.
Mm.
And involving, people, especially young people, in nature is one of the keys. Let them see the ants, let them see the insects, let them see the beauty. I mean, we have a lot of cicadas around here, and in the summer, obviously, they're making the noise. But one day I was out with the children just in the garden, and I stepped back and I felt something underneath my foot, something hard, and it was a cicada. But what I didn't realize was the cicada screamed at me as it felt my foot coming down on it, and it screeched loud. And I went, "What?" And I looked down, and there's the cicada. And that was a beautiful moment for the two children, because now they're seeing that this is a real live insect, a real creature that can actually communicate in its distress or its fear or whatever it was it felt. And I'm very fortunate with my eldest that I will talk to her about the ants or the flowers and that, and she will then translate it into Chinese to her friends who are there because they don't understand English. But she's getting involved in that little growth process of how the flower changes, how this grows, how that grows. And I think that's one of the keys, is to get the children and show them the value of all these things and parts of nature, so that they can become involved, not only with the environment, but with the people, and explain things to people in their own way.
Very much so, very much so. And when we as adults and we as parents do that, those moments are precious, and those children will take it with them. And when they are grown up and when they are raising children, those are the memories they are going to pass on, because now you are building traditions with your daughters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if the other side of the coin is to help them to travel, to mix with other peoples, to see that there are other people, there is a different world, and maybe physical travel isn't possible. Have some virtual meetings with the children, bring the children there, then have the conversations, so we can all realize we're part of this whole world and we're not isolated.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love the fact that we're not only talking about how to bring about unity and how to create a sustainable, shared, mutually respectful environment, right? With everything that is living, whether it's trees or plants or bugs or birds or animals or humans, right? And in that process, it's not just what we are saying and how we are thinking, but how we are showing up. The fact that we have us looking the way we do, coming from the places we come, sounding the way we sound, that itself is acceptance. That self is respect. How do we then take it from here and make this community bigger and bring more people in so that more people feel seen and heard. So a lot of times people would rather watch the YouTube release than get engaged here because they don't want to share their thoughts just in case they get judged. Because we've conditioned people for that. How do we expand this conversation? How do we bring new people with the different perspectives in? Because every perspective is valid, because it's real from that person's vantage point. How do we
We
do
have to have those conversations with the different individuals, people we know, and talk to them and share our excitement, our energy that we're getting from, you know, the conversation we're having here, so that they can then come and see, okay, and they can feed this energy and they can help to build it up.
Absolutely, Stuart. I mean, that's very valid. The more we talk about this, the more it registers in the mind of the people, and then the more it begins to permeate into the society little by little. And I can remember, you know, a couple of weeks ago when, you know, when we were talking about this particular, you know, meeting, I have created a conversation with some people, although some of them were unable to join, you know, right now, but somehow it had registered in their mind. So the next time, then I can start from where I stopped, and somehow when they show up now, then they can grow within the community. So it has to be like a conscious, you know, and deliberate effort to reach out to people the more now and begin to change the status quo from what it used to be, and then start building the community that we want.
Very much so. And I am looking forward to, in 2023, maybe coming to Africa, Kunle, and doing something as you replicate what we are doing in Belize, come and support you and come and be a part of that process, and maybe even introduce the young people to each other through videos, right? Through online mediums, because everybody has a phone these days. How do we build those bridges? You and I have never met, Kunle, but I feel like we know each other so well. When I see you, I'm going to come running and hug you, because in my mind and in my heart, I already know you, right? Because I know you, I recognize you. And so how do we create that in the children? And our geography is not going to limit us. So let's start thinking about, and Felicia, you too, right? And Stuart, we can all go to each other. We can all support each other. If we can't physically be there, we can be there virtually. I attended a virtual engagement of a young Sri Lankan man and his girlfriend, a young Indian woman. And this young man has been my husband and my kind of a kid here because his parents are in Sri Lanka. For 5 years, he's been here, got his undergraduate degree and master's. And we were the family, but we were not in the US. So we attended engagement virtually and we had a good time. So physical presence is no longer needed. We can still make this happen. But I definitely am looking forward to coming personally to Nigeria and being a part of this, to be there for you and support you so that we do this together.
We can't wait to receive you, Dr. Kaz. And just like you said, we haven't met, but I mean, the connection is real. And, you know, the fact that we are also united in the area of purpose, and that is also very important. It makes it realer. Permit me to use that word. So that's how it is. The more we talk about it, then the more it becomes so real, and then we will get more people, and it spreads like a wildfire. Because after people begin to see the impact it's creating, when they come together and they see and what they can realize, that they find out that what they are doing on their own, based on their philosophy of individualism, they are just achieving so little. And in the words of T.D. Jakes, it's like they are throwing too little at too much. There is too much to be done. I mean, it's huge, but you just feel you want to do it alone. You just feel because of your either ego or selfish desire, or whatever you want to call it, you feel you are enough by yourself, and that's why you are pulling in too little. But by the time they see the impact, whereby people achieve something so massive as a result of coming together, come on, result has a way of speaking for itself. They will join it.
That's magic, right? That's where the magic happens. So as we bring this to a close, Felicia, what are your thoughts and what are the things that you see we can start doing?
Okay, thank you. While you were doing all of this talk, something came to my mind, and I feel it should be an approach. It could be an approach. I feel regarding these are various projects that we are thinking of. We can just break them down into team-oriented programs. Theme like, those themes will be more catchy. Not just any program, but team-oriented. Just like you were talking about the Santa Claus and the ripple effect it's had on those children. More importantly, what caught my attention while you were speaking was that lady or that child that is even dreaming of coming again, So team-oriented programs that will be very catchy, and then these will stimulate interest in the people, in the young minds, and in the people generally. And with that, those interests definitely will gather momentum, bring in more people. It's going to be like a ripple effect. And then before you know it, we are more than 3, we are more than 10, we're more than 100. And then we are, making impact everywhere we go.
Beautiful. Absolutely. So next time we gather, that's what our homework is, Felicia. So you are setting the stage up for it. Let's start putting those ideas into what type of projects can we do. Stuart has shared some, Felicia, you have shared some. Let's start curating it and start making a list and then start implementing. And as we implement, we can fine tune it, right? We just start with just enough, because there is no such thing as perfection. So thank you so much, Felicia. And Stuart, what's coming up for you as we bring this to a close?
I'm just thinking of ways we can share projects with our children, whether it's our own personal children or whether it's children in our communities, and we can have common projects like growing this plant, this food plant, or this tree seedling, and whatever is indigenous for that part of the world, so we can start putting back. There's a lot of benefit to connecting the children to the growth projects of nature and making things. How do we make things? I mean, in China we make things out of rice stems because there's a lot of rice grown here. Other parts of the world they make it out of something else, but we don't know that because we don't understand the materials that are available in those different parts of the world. So we can start bringing that into there for the children, and then give little projects for them to make things and show.
Absolutely. So start making a list to it, because there is no idea that is not good enough, because every idea will trigger so many other things, right? And every idea is unique to the environment too. So we absolutely love that you joined. My heart is...
Yeah, it's an honor to join and to meet everybody here. So thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And Kunle, my brother, it is totally an honor to do this with you once a month, every third Thursday. So I will let you share your thoughts as we bring this to a close.
Oh, always a great honor, Dr. Cass. You are so amazing. You're so amazing. And then, coming on here since Stuart as well, an amazing human being. And, I'm so glad. It's always a great time whenever I share a platform with you. I think I can do that over and over again. Yes. So I realize that the depth of the substructure determines the height of the superstructure. In other words, how deep those of us who are going to drive the system, are, determines how well the system will be built. Over the next few weeks too, I'm going to also be doing what I am doing, and each of us also can do that, whereby we get people we know believe in this particular thing that we want to create and get them on board. It might be one person one day, it might be two persons after a period. We don't need a multitude to start, but we just need people who are committed and people who share the vision and passion that we want to implement. So I also feel that is somehow primary to the success of what we want to do.
Perfectly said, Kunle. So we continue to build we're technically Santa ourselves, right? If Santa Claus is a feeling of community and being seen and heard and loved and cared for, then we're all Santa ourselves. How do we get ourselves into this process so that we can go and take all the magic that we believe is inside of us and share it with others so that they can unleash the magic, and then the magic gets geometrically exploding, right? So that is our mission, that is our purpose. Feel free to bring in those you believe are the right parties into this conversation, because the goal is, as we go into 2023, start actually doing programs, doing things in a way that we are supporting each other and connecting virtually with all the stakeholders that we are participating with. And then eventually someday have enough funding. Kunle and I have plans to create funding too for this, so that we can help each other and the community causes. Okay, so with that, our unity is our strength, our respect and love for each other in the purest of form is what's going to power us and this mission forward. So for that trust and respect you bring in, and the love with which you share your thoughts and ideas and solutions, I am so grateful. And I cannot wait for us to meet again next month. And it'll be a new year. So wish you all the best for the holiday season, and cannot wait in the new year.
Thank you all. It's been an honor, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
memories. Thank you so much.